Hi, this is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the pens from my collection that if I were only able to own one pen, if it was one of these, I would be content with that. I'm going to try to quickly go through each one of these pens and explain what characteristic of it would make it so special that I would be able to use it as my one and only pen. And for each one of these pens, I also have an ink. For some of them, I have an ink that is the only ink that I use in that pen. I'm going to ink up these pens then and do a writing sample with each. Now, the Pilot Vanishing Point falls into this category because the Pilot Fine Nib, I feel like it is my favorite overall nib. But the fine nib that's in my Custom 74 and my Custom Heritage 92, those have, I've mentioned in other videos, a drier upstroke. Like the stroke in all the other directions puts down a certain amount of ink, but then the upstroke is drier. Now, in most circumstances, like with a nice, smooth, fountain pen friendly paper, that's not a problem. I like the character, the line variation that gives my writing, but on some papers, it gives it a dry feeling, a slight unpleasantness, whereas the fine nib on the Vanishing Point has that same soft feel. It has writes with the same line width, but it writes exactly the same in all directions. So those papers that feel kind of dry with my Custom 74 and Custom Heritage 92, I don't get that feeling with this fine nib. Another thing that makes it special compared to other Pilot pens, you can get replacement nib sections for this. Now, they're a little bit on the expensive side, but they're cheaper than buying a whole new pen. For example, when I got this pen, it had an extra fine nib, and I enjoyed writing with it, but I just like Pilot fine nibs. Those are my favorite. So I bought a fine nib section, and that's what I write with in this mostly. But if this were my only pen, and at some point down the road, if my taste changed, I might buy a stub nib section for it. I've written with my sister's Vanishing Point, and she has it with a stub nib, and it's a fun nib to write with. I really enjoy it. But for most of my writing, I never get tired of writing with a Pilot fine nib. But if I ever did, the Vanishing Point, you can get replacement nibs for it. I've enjoyed using lots of inks with my Pilot fine nibs, but my favorite, and I haven't gotten tired of it yet, is Colorverse Dark Energy. I've mentioned this before also. When I'm writing with it, it gives me Leonardo da Vinci notebook vibes. And if I actually compared this ink to actual writing in Leonardo da Vinci notebooks, it might be a completely different color, but in my mind, it gives me those kind of vibes. And I'm going to ink up this pen with Dark Energy, and I'll do a writing sample with it when I get done going through all these pens. Another pen that I feel like I could be content with for the rest of my life is the Leonardo Momento Zero, the regular size. Ever since I saw it, I've always thought it's a beautiful pen. It comes in so many different materials, but one thing I was concerned about was the shape of the section. When it first came out, this was kind of an unusual shape for a section, and I mentioned that to people when I would watch videos about this pen, and everyone who talked to me about it said it's very comfortable. And when I finally tried one, I agree. This is just a perfect size and just a very comfortable shape of a section. Now, when I got this pen, it had an extra fine nib on it, and I really wanted to try the elastic extra fine, so I had to buy one separately. They're getting to be kind of hard to find, but I really hope JoWo continues to make these elastic extra fine and fine nib sections. I've tried both sizes. My favorite is the extra fine, but I enjoy both of them. I just like the extra fine because that's the nib size I tend to gravitate to. And one of the reasons I feel like this could be a pen that is the only one I use for life is, again, if my tastes change with this using JoWo nibs, you can change nib sizes. And I have an extra fine, a fine, and this extra fine elastic. And I just like that you have the option to change nibs without having to buy an entire new pen. I like using green inks in this pen. This is the Jade or Giada finish. It's got yellowy greens, bright greens. I feel like you can use any color green in this pen, but I also like using pinkish type inks, maybe burgundies or wine-colored inks. But my favorite ink to use in this pen, Jacques Herbin Vert Atlantide. And so that's what I'm going to be inking this pen up with for the writing sample. The next pen that I think I would be content with if it were my only pen is the Sailor Pro Gear. Not the Pro Gear Slim, just the regular Pro Gear. Now, this one differs from all of the other pens on this list in that you can't get replacement nibs for it. But this one has a 21 karat medium fine, and this pen writes really well in the regular orientation, but also in reverse. So I feel like I've got some options here. If I really needed to write more fine than that, I could. But whenever I've used this pen, I've always been very content with it. I'm not looking forward to finishing up whatever ink I have filled in it and moving on to something else. In fact, whenever I'm using it, I'm like, wow, does this bump out my Pilot Fine Nib as far as being my favorite? They are at least tied for my favorite. With it being a 21 karat nib, it has a nice softness to it. It's just very pleasant to write with. I don't use it posted. It has, for it being a plastic pen, it's got a nice weight to it. It's lightweight, but for the size of the pen, it's a nice density. And I just like the feel of it in my hand. I like the size of the section. Now, for some people, it might be too small, but for me, it's perfect. I've heard men say that the King of Pen is their perfect size. And I've been tempted to buy a King of Pen a time or two, but I thought, if this feels perfect to me, why mess with it? And with the color of this pen, an ink I have always used in it is Tasha Hokusai Benasuchi. I love this ink. It's very matchy-matchy with this pen, and I just love the writing experience. So that's what I'm going to ink it up with and use in the writing sample. Next, I've got a Lamy All-Star. Now, this is one from the Harry Potter series. This is the Gryffindor pen. And I never would have bought a Lamy All-Star or a Safari for myself. For some reason, I just thought, I don't think I'm going to like that. I was concerned about the shape of the section, but my husband got me one for Christmas because he knew I liked Harry Potter, and lo and behold, I really liked it. I like the look of anodized aluminum pens, but usually they'll have an anodized aluminum section, and it's just too slippery for me. This is the perfect aluminum pen, where the pen body, the cap, and everything are aluminum, but you've got a nice grippy plastic section. Now, my husband didn't realize that how much I love fine and extra fine nibs. He got me one with a medium nib, and it was nice. I enjoyed writing with it, but I had heard that what are these called? Are they called the cursive pens? I'll have to look that up, what these nibs were called. I heard that Lamy had stopped making these, so I had a little bit of a FOMO, so I bought one, and I really enjoy the writing experience with this nib. It's just fine enough that it's right in that area that I enjoy. So I don't really have a favorite ink with this. When I first used it, I inked it up with a sample of Montegrappa Ravenclaw that I had. I really liked it, but it's not an ink that I feel like I have to ink this up with all the time. I really wanted to ink it up with Herbin Lee de Tay because I feel like that would be Gryffindor colors, the maroonish kind of color with the almost brownish mustardy color of the Lee de Tay. But I've been looking for a pen to use my Cacao de Brazil in, and I like the look of this pen with this brownish, kind of grayish brown ink. So that's what I'm going to ink it up with for the writing sample. And again, not only do I just enjoy writing with this, but Lamy has those replaceable nibs that if my taste change in the future, I can get a different size nib. The next pen in this list is the Kaweco Art Sport. The Kaweco Sport was my first fountain pen that I bought for myself, and I liked it, but there wasn't anything about it that just put it at that next level where it was a pen that I just had to have in my collection. When I saw this Art Sport, I just loved that combination of brown and black. I liked the integrated clip. That's something that I didn't realize that I missed on the regular Sport, but I just like the look of that. I hear a lot of people saying that on their regular Sports, they feel like they have to have the clip on it. It looks naked without the clip. I didn't realize I felt that way until I saw this one with the clip on it. I'm like, that just looks so nice. It doesn't really need it as far as needing a roll stop, but I just love the look of this pen. I got the original Sport because I was drawn toward pocket pens, but I like that when it's posted, it doesn't feel like a pocket pen. Now, this section is about as narrow as I would want to go. I've tried to use the Lilliput a couple different times. I've got the black aluminum one, and I had a brass one at one point. And it's awesome for little short notes, but the Lilliput section is just a hair thinner than I would prefer. This is just perfect. I wouldn't want it to go any more narrow, but I enjoy writing with this pen for long periods of time. I don't feel my hand getting cramped or uncomfortable. I don't have one ink in particular that I always have to use in it. I wouldn't mind using brown inks, warm brown inks in this pen, but here recently I have been drawn to kind of more pink inks, more, I guess, wine-colored maybe. I'm not usually drawn to pink type inks for writing, but for certain pens, and especially in this 14 karat fine nib, I just enjoy the way they write and the way they look. And so L'Armée de Cassis is what I'm going to be inking this pen up with for the writing sample. And again, this is an example of a pen where it's easy to get replacement nibs. I think I got this one with a double broad, just in case at some point down the road, if I want to get it ground by a nib smith. But for now, I'm enjoying this gold fine nib. This pen surprised me. An Esterbrook J pen. When I bought this from an antique store, it was pretty grubby. Like it felt, dirty, and I just thought it would be a fun experience to try to restore it. I had no idea it would turn out this nice. The stainless steel hardware cleans up really nicely. You don't have to worry about like you do with gold-plated hardware, the plating getting worn off or worn thin. You don't have to worry about corrosion. It's just you're able to clean this pen up really nicely. And if you get some polishing compound, I was shocked at how nice this turned out for a beginner. This was one of the first pens I ever restored. And what puts this in the category of this could be a pen for life is this has threaded nibs, and they come in a ton of different nib sizes, nibs for every different purpose you can think of. And I think this was the first fountain pen that used threaded nibs. Again, if the internals ever break and you're unable to get like the internal mechanism, the J-bar, as long as you can put an ink sac, as long as you're able to get replacement ink sacs for this pen, the size 16, since this is a threaded nib assembly, you could use it as an eyedropper. So this is a pen that's been around for possibly 80 years and has stood the test of time. This is a pen I could use for life. And I always use Waterman Mysterious Blue in this. It's an ink that is recommended for pens with an ink sac. It's very gentle, and I just like the look of it. And that's what I'm going to be inking my pen up with for the writing sample. And finally, I feel like the TWSBI VAC 700 could be a pen that I would be content with. Now, I'm not sure, but I think this is something I need to test. And my sister has she has a few TWSBI 580s. I think the 580 uses the same nib section. It's a threaded nib section that you can screw out. I think it uses the same. I think the VAC 700 uses the same nib section as the 580. If you know, yay or nay, let me know in the comments. I'm going to try to check with my sister over Thanksgiving. I'll take this pen over there and see if we can swap nibs if they're interchangeable. Now, for this particular pen, it has that, I think this is an anodized finish, that rainbow finish. It wouldn't look right with just a plain nib, or it wouldn't look as good, I should say. But I'm just talking about this model, I think could be a pen that I was content with, especially if you can swap out the nibs. Now, this was gifted to me at a pen show by someone who watches my videos. Number one, it's just a beautiful pen. And since I'm the kind of person that I feel like I could be content using one ink color for the rest of my life, I think I could be content with a pen like this, especially since it holds such a large amount of ink. Now, this originally had, and it still has, an extra fine nib, but I ground it into a stub, and I love the way it writes. I love the character that it gives my writing. It's not too broad, but it's a little bit broader than the original extra fine grind that was on it. I feel like this could also make a really nice travel pen. I haven't used it as a travel pen yet. When I was doing all my traveling this summer, I had a broken arm, so I didn't take any pens with me. But since this has that double reservoir, you open the back to let ink flow through. But then if you're going to be traveling, you can let the ink flow back into the main or the large reservoir and close that off. And you're less likely to have ink leak out into your cap or to burp or anything like that. So, and since this is one of the few TWSBIs that doesn't have the anodized aluminum section, even the ones with the ridges are better than the smooth ones as far as me gripping it, but it's still not my favorite. When I used this one for the first time, I thought, yeah, if I ever get another TWSBI, it will have to have the plastic section. This just feels really nice. It's got a nice bit of weight to it, and it's just pretty. And especially if you're able to swap nib sections, that would make this a pen that I would be content using this for life. I'm going to ink it up with Iroshizuku Murasaki Shikibu. Now, for now, I'm just going to dip it in the ink when I do the writing sample because this holds so much ink. But I went ahead and got, oops, not the Ink Miser. Now, the Ink Miser you could use to make inking this up easier, but I got the VAC 20A so that you can get a fuller fill in your VAC pen. I haven't used it yet because, like I said, it holds so much ink. But the next time I give it a full fill for a trip, and I have a trip coming up over the holidays, I'm going to give that a try. Now, I feel like with this pen, you could really use any color ink. I've been using this beautiful Murasaki Shikibu, but you could really use anything. I would use any color in this, maybe except for brown. Even a gray I would use in it. Okay, I'm going to do a writing sample with my vanishing point with that 18 karat fine nib. This is a pen I never thought I would want to own. I didn't think it would be comfortable, so I never thought about buying one just online. But when I had an opportunity to visit a pen shop, I held one in my hand, and I knew when I wrote with it that this is a pen that would work for me, and I've enjoyed it very much ever since. Next, I'll be writing with my Leonardo Momento Zero with the extra fine elastic nib. I've got it inked up with Jacques Herbin Vert Atlantide. Now, I like the look of shimmer inks, but I don't usually like the extra hassle. Maybe hassle is too strong of a word, but the extra hassle that's involved with shimmer inks. But for Vert Atlantide, there's just something about it. I'm willing to make an exception, and especially around the holiday season, I love that ink. And the only thing I wish that the converter for the Leonardo had was a little ink agitator. Like my Graphon Faber-Castell, I've got a converter for one of those pens, and it has the little ink agitator in it. Now, I know some people don't like them because they rattle around, but when you're using a shimmer ink, it's just so nice to have that, to keep the shimmer agitated and mixed in with the ink. Here's that elastic nib. I'll do a writing sample with it. Look how wet that nib is, but it still puts down a fairly fine line. And let me see. Look how nice the reverse writing is. Very fine. Oh, that's Essie. But a nice consistent line of ink. I really enjoy writing with a Pilot fine nib, but I don't think I would feel like I was missing out on anything if I only had this Leonardo with the elastic extra fine nib. Next, I'm going to do a writing sample with my Sailor Pro Gear. Again, it's got the 21 karat medium fine. Again, like these first two pens, there's a softness to this nib that I really enjoy. Now, I have talked to people that cannot stand the bounciness of a nib. They like that nail-like precision of a lot of stainless steel nibs. And some gold nibs are, kind of no variation, no bounciness to them. But I really like just that slight bounciness. I don't try to flex the nib in any way. I just like the slight cushion that it provides. And this one is also a nice reverse writer. Though this is very similar to the Elastic Extra Fine, a little bit broader than the Pilot Fine nib, but this is and puts down a narrow enough line that for me it suits my size of handwriting, and I just enjoy it very much. And I feel like I would be content with this ink if that was the only ink I were able to use. This ink is not waterproof, and in fact, each of these inks are not waterproof, but if you submerge them in water, these two have a grayish waterproof component. This one just leaves a lot of ink behind, enough ink behind that it's still legible. Okay, next I've got my Harry Potter All-Star, Lamy All-Star. I've got it inked up with Herbon Cacao de Brazil, and I think this is either called the Lamy Cursive or Lamy Calligraphy nib. This puts down a wider line than the others, and the line it puts down is a little bit large for these really small Hobonichi grids. I think these are around 4 millimeter, but this line width works really well with the 5 millimeter grids that I enjoy using, like in my Rhodia paper. And the reverse writing on this is real nice also. That's a very nice line. Very consistent ink flow. Nice and wet for that fine of a line. Next, I've got my Kaweco All Sport with the 14 karat fine nib. I never get tired of this fine nib with these pinkish kind of inks. And let me see, I don't remember. This is fine enough. This writes in reverse, but with this ink, that's a little bit too pale. It puts down a nice line. For something like a blue or a black ink, that would be nice and legible. But for this pink ink, I really just prefer the regular writing. Next, I'll be writing with my vintage Esterbrook J pen. It's got, let's see if this will show up, the 2556 nib. They're called Renew Points or Durachrome Renew Points, if I remember correctly. And I think this one is classified as a firm fine nib. The nib that was on this pen when I originally got it was a firm broad nib, and it wrote too wet for my taste, too broad for my taste. It wrote nice, and it was fun to write with, but just for my size of handwriting, it wasn't real well suited. So I got on eBay and bought a medium nib, a firm medium. It didn't write as wet, but there wasn't a whole lot of difference in the line width. Now, those were both used nibs, so I'm not sure how they would have differed if they were both new old stock. Well, then I bought this used fine nib, and it doesn't write very fine, but I just love the way it writes. So, and I didn't write, this is 2556. So I bought a new old stock 2556. Well, it writes completely different. And I looked at this nib under a loupe, and it's worn flat. The tipping is worn flat on the writing surface, on the bottom edge. But I just love the way it writes. So this is my favorite Esterbrook nib. It's a worn out 2556. But if I ever get tired of it, I have a ton of nib options with this pen. And finally, I'll be writing with my TWSBI VAC 700 with the modified extra fine nib. I love writing with this nib, and if that stub, extra fine stub, is too wide, it also writes very nice in reverse. Puts down a nice, consistent, drier line. You can see that's a decently wet writer, and it puts down enough ink that it's dark enough for me that this is my favorite pen to write with this ink in. I just really enjoy it. So these are the pens from my collection, and some of these are pen and ink combinations from my collection that I would be content if one of these were the only pen and ink or pen that I were able to use for the rest of my life. Now, the problem with having so many inks, pen and inks that are this good, that I enjoy this much, is it's difficult to choose sometimes which ones to use. And most people would just ink them all up. But if I have them all inked up at the same time, ink might, get drier. You know how ink sometimes can get sticky or dried up a little bit. But I mean, looking at these pens, these are not pens that are prone to drying out. Maybe the Vanishing Point would have the most trouble if I didn't use it regularly enough. But these are my favorites. These are the best of the best. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.